Welcome, my friends, to Peace, Love, and Bring It Back, the podcast that never ends, where we gather our clan and talk about the peace and love in our lives, the difficulties along the journey, and how we rise up from them. We will experience a little thing I call Kluberty together, and by the end of the show, we're going to find our sweet spot. I'm Uncle Dave, and our transformation starts right here. Hey now, and how are you doing? Want to welcome you to the next episode of Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat. Today's guest is an author of the Manhood Manifesto, and he has so many great stories. He's part of the Right Foundation. We'll find out what that is. Just wait till you speak to Mike Shereck. Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Hey, Dave, how are you, man? Thanks for having me, dude. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate your time, man. I love it. Thank you so much for being a guest, and I can't wait to hear, because as we were just talking about the Manhood Manifesto, I think it's really important for each one of us to have that. Men need to speak out. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It was hilarious too. Is the source of the Manhood Manifesto is New York City. I did a TED Talk in New York, and it came from just like I was at this experience, and this woman asked me a question, and I just started talking about it. And what it was men have been under attack for quite some time, and masculinity has been under attack, and for good reason. I mean, there's been some stupid stuff done, and we haven't addressed it. We've just addressed masculinity, and we say things like it's toxic and this and it's that. And the truth of the matter is, most of the Western world was developed by men, and so there's a need for a responsible expression of masculinity today. And that's really what the book is about, is how do we be fully responsible? How do we provide leadership? And how do we do so in a way that can, because we're living in an ever growing environment, and how can we do it in a way that people that aren't like us can hear it without being threatened, without being made wrong, without being scared, So, there's that quote, "Too much is given, much is expected," and I think that's really what the book is about. It's really a call for action for men to step up and really own their power first and foremost, but also provide leadership in all areas of life. So that's really what it's about.
Yeah, no, which is true. I mean, it's evolution, right? So we can't be men, right? We're not going back into the caves, though you can go cave diving, but you're not going back to the cave. So you have to evolve, and part of that manifesto really is talking about the evolution and still being leadership. That doesn't mean that you have to be the leader, but you have to start off by being a leader in your own life before you go anywhere else.
Yeah, and I think what it really calls for, Dave, is a really high degree of self-awareness and self-understanding and consciousness, right? So you're so right. I mean, the days of going out, kicking ass and taking names isn't required like it was. And that's one of the reasons it drew me here, peace, love, and bring a bat. I mean, that male aggression, that male assertion, there are areas it's appropriate. And to try to eliminate that is kind of eliminating part of the human condition. But the question becomes, how do we now operate that way responsibly in a new context? And that's the challenge. And that's where there's new learning needed and new practices needed. And we're going to fail, because it's all new. But that's really what it's about, man.
Yeah, and failing is not always a bad thing. It's taking that learning experience from that non-successful piece, right? That's why that Bring a Bat, it's to get people's attention, and everybody's like, oh yeah, I want to bring a bat. I'm like, dude, it's all about non-negotiables and really about the boundaries. And we do need to have boundaries. So we need to have better boundaries on both sides of the sexual or whatever, however you identify yourself.
Yeah, it's across all spectrums of the social context, the social construct. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's part of self-awareness, Dave, is when you understand your values, then you can understand your boundaries. And when you understand your boundaries, you can peacefully decline the opportunity. Mm-hmm. Thanks, but no thanks. I'm not going to go there. That's not what I'm here for. So that's kind of what it's about, man.
Yeah, what's funny is because people just see the bad and they only think of the violence, and that was my intention to really shock people, right? It's that shock piece. But I just recently was interviewed, and I said, well, who brought the bat the best ways? Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi. You know why? Because they stood for what they wanted to. They knew their boundaries, and they didn't, go by it. They didn't bring a bat. They didn't hurt anybody. They were just doing it. And there's as you said, peaceful way to go about things. Because life is a weird journey. Yeah.
No, man, it totally is. And the thing you're pointing to is really, I believe the key component of that in the book is really the ability for men to take a stand. And what does taking a stand mean? First and foremost, there's this 2-letter word in English language that's really powerful. It's no, Mm-hmm. And no is a complete sentence. And it's standing for what you believe in. It's standing for what is important, and it's fighting for something, not fighting against. And that's what it's about. And to do that, you have to be very clear on who you are, what matters, what's your purpose. There's a level of self-awareness required that, unfortunately, I think, hasn't been discovered at the level that needs to really make the change we need in our culture, So
it's that ability to have that conversation, to have that honest conversation, and based on my perspective, and hearing what your perspective is also. So, that's the real challenge, and that's where we've been lost as a society. In that it's either my way or then you're wrong, or I want you, I want to hit you with a bat. No, it's let me hear you. I don't have to agree with you, right? Just because I say it doesn't mean you have to agree with me, and vice versa. Right.
Very cool, man. Yeah.
So you've had an eventful life, and so I want to just talk a little bit about the journey, right? We're all on a path, as we often refer to. So, as I guess the old Grateful Dead song, right? It's a long, strange journey it's been. Could you share some of the great stories that have meant most to you?
Yeah, I think they all have been. First of all, it's been amazing. I grew up in Berwyn and Cicero, Illinois. I mean, the most famous citizen from Cicero is Al Capone. So it was a great place to grow up. And I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and so I witnessed a lot of social change. I lived in Cicero when Martin Luther King had the only march that was stopped. And it was stopped because the state troopers and the National Guard couldn't assure his safety. He really, and I was young enough that I said, wow, this is interesting. This guy's really got people agitated. I wonder what he's up to, Mm-hmm. And it really had me start to look. And that was like 66, I think. And then, I became drawn to him, and I was drawn to Bobby Kennedy, and I watched these guys get assassinated. I was like, what the hell? So I've always had this kind of like questioning and really looking, and I'm just an ordinary guy. I started out as a tool and die maker, but I got into sales, I got into business, I worked in both manufacturing and construction, met a bunch of great people, got challenged. And I think the thing that I got was how important authenticity is. It will get you fired, but you can sleep at night,
Mm-hmm.
And so I really started to value that more than just, financial success. And then I got into coaching, and coaching has opened up a whole nother world for me, and, but there's been a lot of interesting journeys, interesting stories, people I've talked to, people I've met that, the coaching stuff is kind of confidential. I can't share some of the incredible people I've worked with, but, in construction, I mean, the Chicago White Sox were my biggest customer, and I get to do a whole bunch of projects with them, and that was cool. And to get inside of baseball was really cool, And so there was just all kinds of cool things. My life has been one continuous blessing after another. That's why I believe in guardian angels, because there's no way I could have got it this way, because I'm an idiot.
Guilty as charged, for me at least. Exactly. I agree that sometimes I'm amazed. That's how I came up with that word "kluberty" that we talked about.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Sometimes it's you go through a rough process, and then you're like, how the hell did I get here? And it's that period of life where you go from almost from hell to being blessed, and you realize it.
It happens like that.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing I learned so much, Dave. You know, you talk about the journey, is the thing that I probably gained the most from is just leaning into the things that have sucked, you know, and getting up from the times that you crash, you know, like no whining.
Yep.
You know? And I'm blind. Oh, believe me, I'm blind. But the whining does no good. You know, there's no payoff in the whining. So, yeah, I think that's it, man. Just engage and do stuff you find interesting and hang with cool people and ask questions and learn. And, you know, we're never done, man. This thing called life is never fully baked until they throw dirt in your face. You know?
Yeah, no, and that's what I keep saying. You got to keep growing, because I've used this also recently. It's pretty amazing how things come up in the same conversations recently. And, you know, in an investment person once told me, you keep going as aggressive as you're comfortable with. And the same thing with and he continued that conversation with, you got to keep learning about things. That's why you don't just become aggressive, you know, in financial, and I'm not giving anybody financial advice. But, you know, you keep learning, because until you stop learning, then you die. Right. So, that, you know, keep growing. And the option is, why wouldn't you do it anyway? I mean, I know people in my own life who have not grown their whole life and are much older than their age. And then I also know people who are in their 80s and 90s who are much younger than their age. You know, our body's going to give out at some point. That's just fact, right? As your background in machines and things like that, it's going to break down somehow. But that doesn't mean you have to give up or, you know, not continue to expand yourself. Now,
that's brilliant, Dave.
So we were just talking a little bit about, I guess, like what I'll call a Phoenix moment, but you would give me a different way of looking at it. The 26th Road to Damascus. I had never heard of that. So could you explain that to me?
Well, the road to Damascus is St. Paul was struck down. I mean, he was an arrogant guy who was just a bastard. And, you know, he got struck down by lightning, and he woke up and he realized that, you know, his life was, that's when he dedicated his life to Christ, right? That's when he got knocked down. Well, I'm a really slow learner. I've had about 26 of them. And no, really, dude, like, I mean, I am a really slow learner, and I've got knocked down. I'm from losing jobs to, you know, big breakdowns in contracts to challenges in relationships to all kinds of stuff. And the one that really woke me up finally, I was a big, at least I thought I was a big player in the construction world, and I was supposed to be at an appointment with someone very dear to me who was going to get a cancer diagnosis. And she was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, which at the time was a death sentence. And all of a sudden, you know, I realized our mortality. I thought I was going to, I thought I was the guy. I thought I was the one. This is how arrogant I was. I thought I was the one who was going to beat this thing. You know, I was going to outlive everybody. I was going to, you know, I had a long time, you know, screw you guys. The rules don't apply to me. All of that. Right. And then I was faced with like, holy cow, this person who's really, really dear to me was diagnosed with, you know, 6 months to live. And that was like a kick in the, and again, 25 punches before kind of cracked it, but that was the one that opened it up. And that's literally when my life changed. And,
you never know when your life's going to change and what's going to go. You could go, you know, luckily you got through 25 of those, right? You know, I've gone through. That's why when I say Phoenix moments, until this last one for me, which was also a life or death kind of moment, it was a life or death moment that made me finally see it in a completely different way. You can't, right? The teacher will appear when the student is ready, and you hope that you live through that piece. You hope you get to that piece. And that's why, you know, a part of this podcast is really about to hear people like yourself. It's not only the experts of the field, it's all the regular people who are experts in their lives after going through it and rising through it. And that's great. I never heard of this story. Obviously, I'm from a Jewish faith, even though my girls are raised Catholic. Okay. So I had never heard of the I've heard the road to Damascus. I never knew the story with Paul, so I'm going to actually look at that.
Yeah, go look it up. It's cool. It's a cool story. And Paul, the story of Paul is just, dude. I mean, the guy was a massive badass, and he was a bastard for a while, and then he became like the dude. I mean, the guy made stuff happen, and Christianity probably wouldn't be Christianity today without him. I mean, he wrote part of the New Testament. I mean, brilliant guy.
Yeah, no, that's why I always like to do. I like lots of religions. So like I said, my children are being raised Catholic, and when they were going through all their life stages stuff, I'd be in the front row, and I got to know the priests and everything, and I said, yeah, me and the other Jewish guy up there, we hang together, and he'd laugh, and I always would be respectful because I think we're all one. It doesn't matter how you get there, right? It doesn't matter how you get there. GPS, when you have GPS, it has multiple ways to get there. You can go high road, low road, middle road, or the toll roads. And you and I sound like we definitely had a toll road experiences through those. You had to pay the opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, when you think about it, there's all these different religions out there. Ultimately, I'm of the belief that there's like one source of it all, and like you said, it's just different roads to the same place. So I don't get too worked up about people's religion. I mean, I practiced Buddhism for about 3 years. That's not really a religion, and what I found out, it's more of a philosophy. But,
yeah. Once you start diving into it, everybody thinks it's a religion, and it's not. It's just a way of thinking. It's one universal energy is how they really talk about it, and that's why when I got into Reiki, I was like, yeah, I could do that. Like I understand the concepts, not and you still have learning to do. I mean, even with my children, when we sat through pre-Cana, when I went to marry their mom, that's exactly what I said to the priest. I said, we're all one, right? Yeah. You believe you're praying through Jesus, and the faith that I grew up in, I have a direct line. That doesn't make me better. It just we're talking to the same guy. It doesn't matter, and it's our relationship with God.
Yeah. Very cool, man.
So through your journeys, you probably had to unlearn stuff, or what are things that you would tell your younger self?
Don't play it safe. My dad. I mean, my dad grew up he was a Union guy, very Irish Catholic, and he was really concerned about screwing up and about getting taken advantage of or making mistakes or this type of stuff, So I was cautious for a while, and what I learned is, your financial guy said, go as aggressively as you're comfortable with. Mm-hmm. I think that's brilliant advice. And if you get out over your skis a little bit and you fall down, pick yourself up and get back on it. I think that's the thing is failure is not fatal, and I was afraid of it for a long time, and I get up really quick now,
Right. That's when I talk about the Phoenix, that's why I don't allow myself to go down to where I was, to repeat things and get crushed as much as you had, then that's not learning, because you're not learning the right resources or resilience. But being able to handle all the challenges that you face now differently, that doesn't mean you don't get upset. We all have that opportunity to get upset, but it's how do you do it? So what are some of the ways that you manage to make sure that you don't go down the wrong road and keeping on your path?
One of the things that I've recently just started learning, as a man, I was often told to bypass or trained to bypass my feelings, mm-hmm. Just, stay on course and be very cognitive in my approach to things, have a strategy and go there. One of the things that's really beginning to work is I'm paying attention to the different feelings we have, and following those and inquiring in those, and primarily the one, and I would probably own that I never do this, but the one I'm really paying the most attention to is sadness. Like, what makes me sad, you know? And what I've learned, there's a yearning or desire for that to be there, and it isn't present yet. And that absence of it, you know, will make you sad. So what's it going to take to deal with that, or to address it, or to be with it, you know? And I think that's what, you know, that's the most current learning, you know, but I'm learning every day, dude. You know?
Yeah.
So, but
well,
yeah.
So I guess it sounds like you learn a lot more from the darkness at times, how to then kind of flip the switch on to make the darkness, bring the light to the darkness and heal yourself that way.
I think, especially for guys, especially for successful guys, that is one of the most essential things to do to continue the path of growing and developing. I mean, as guys, we deny our darkness because it's how we get in trouble. It's how we get told we're toxic. It's how we're called abusive, right? And so in denying it, it just keeps it going on more and more. Mm-hmm. And so what you want to do is you want to discover it. And you're so right, Dave, is the more you can be with your dark, the more you have light to give, you know? It's like opening up a valve, right? The valve's two sides. There's a light and a dark, and one side's dark. And when you open that up, the other one opens up too. And that was a valuable lesson I learned a while ago, but I'm learning it more and more. And it's so cool because the guys I work with, when they learn it, to see the impact it has on them is remarkable. It's absolutely remarkable.
Yeah, well, once you can see somebody, either in yourself or somebody else, to see that flip the switch and see the changes, it really becomes so enlightening. And it's intoxicating. I mean, I have to say, it's really one of those things you start getting addicted to, not in somebody else's, glories, because, as a coach, it's really all about them and it's their journey. But, right. You're then like, okay, so I learned this and this is what I learned. I always try to take notes with the learnings that I then put into myself. The advice I give is also for myself. We'll be back in a moment.
Well, that's a nice song. Hey, everybody. It's me, the launch dad himself, George Andriopoulos, the host of the Launchcast, the co-host of Over My Dad podcast. But more importantly, I'm here today on behalf of Launchpad 516 Studios, the podcast production company that makes those two shows, the one you're listening to now, and so many others possible. Now, what is Launchpad 516 Studios? Well, it's the brainchild of Launchpad 516. It's a podcast production company, and we help you from conceptualization to production to recording to post-production to monetization. The key word here, let's turn that hobby, that idea into a revenue stream. But more importantly, let's get that important idea out there and get your voice heard, because that's what matters right now. Hit us up, launchpad516studios.com to find out more information, or send us an email, podcast@lp516.com. DM me at LaunchpadCEO on all the platforms. Let's chat. Let's get your voice heard. We're pretty good at this, guys. Don't let this offer slip by you. Later, guys.
You're listening to Peace, Love, and Bring It Back with me, Uncle Dave Shemetsky.
Dave, you're hitting on two really important parts. The first one is that's really access to increased aliveness, so that's really how we become alive and engaged in the world, The other thing is you're exposing the dirty little secret of coaching, and that's, that as much as your clients grow, you do too, So all your clients' breakthroughs are yours, and that's the part that's just is like such a cool jam about being a coach, And then, we're pretty blessed in being able to do what we do.
Yeah, no, and so one of the things I also love to talk to you about, my Goons for Good, about charity work. So, I know that you work with the Wright Foundation. So would you explain to us a little bit about the Wright Foundation, please?
Yeah, the Wright Foundation is just an amazing organization. It's actually created, and it's got a 200-year mission to creating a world that works for everyone. And they really mean it when we say everyone. It's like for the whole world. And so There's all types of initiatives and programs, and we got 193 years left, that some that aren't even started, but it's really we talk about inclusivity, right? Mm-hmm. And inclusivity today has kind of got somewhat perverted because of the political nature of it. But this is really about including all people and all diversities, and not just diversity like racial diversity. I think that's the minimal level of acceptance of diversity, but diversity of thought, diversity of ideas, diversity of expression, diversity of being, So it's a cool foundation. It's, we're located in Chicago. It has, the founders are both inspirational and outstanding and cool, and it's just a great group of people. I've never been around so many smart people in the world. I know every room I walk into, I'm nowhere near the smartest,
Which is great. That's one of those things that I always say. If you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room. That doesn't mean you can't be one of the smart. Right? Yeah, well, me neither. Again, guilty as charged. But because I've always learned, there's always somebody, and even somebody who might be less learned on certain subjects. We're all experts in different subjects. Really, there's different ways to go about it. There's not one way. There's not one path or one road to Damascus.
Right.
So it's the road that we take and how we weave that road to get where we want to go to.
Yeah. And what's so cool about the reason I was brought into the Wright Foundation is I'm part of the Human Emergence Group, and the Human Emergence Group is really bringing principles of transformation and social and emotional intelligence into the work environment. So what my job really is to work with and develop entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial companies, primarily is what my focus is, right? Because we're dealing with leaders, and those are the guys who can impact, all the different people that work in there. And it's so cool. I mean, guys, I primarily focus in manufacturing and construction. So the kind of guys that run those organizations. Mm-hmm. These are tough guys, results-driven guys, and they're also brilliant, and they're looking at like, what's next for me? And often this conversation about transformation, this conversation about social and emotional intelligence, this conversation about generating results through the context of relationship is different than the way they've been operating. So when you bring that to them and you can show them that this can actually work, man, it's remarkable what happens. They get up to speed so quick. It's amazing. And it's just it's an honor to work with those kind of guys.
Well, I think what it is they're just not, they haven't been exposed to some of this.
That's all it is.
It's just a different way of, that's why we all sit down and have that different conversation. That becomes, oh, I get it. There's different levels of being spiritual and things like that. That's why there's all different ways to go about it, and you figure out what's comfortable, and you could still be a man. So go back to your manhood manifesto. It doesn't mean that you're giving up by having more feelings. It's actually you're being more human rather than the traditional caveman. You have to not hold. You shared that you were advised or just traditionally to hold back your feelings, and it feels so much better to feel your feelings, both good and bad, because then you can know what to do to either heal yourself if there's a healing, or at least to experience things differently and learn.
Dave, the thing you're talking about is what you're really calling for is authenticity, right? And what authenticity isn't mean just expressing what you are in the moment. It's really about who you can become, and who you become is a combination of your own expression, your own who you are, plus your purpose and your reason for living and the things that light you up. So that's what authenticity is. And that's what this is about. And we all have dreams. We all have desires. And that's the axis of how we get there. And that's what the work I do is. And that's why it's so freaking cool. And that's why I joined this organization, is because that's really what they're up to. And it's dude, every day is a freaking party, it's awesome. So
that's beautiful. And that's what you want. But I was just going to say, what lights you up? But that sounds like it lights you up every day.
That's what it does, Plus riding my Harley, but it's, I got about 18 inches of snow out there, so that's not inducive to riding my bike today.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you'll get it. We got the rain part of that yesterday. So.
Oh, did you? Yeah, we got hammered. And it's cold. We got completely hammered, but it's okay. It's winter. Well, I live in Chicago. It's winter. It's January. What am I to expect?
Yep.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
well, I know you're a type of, not necessarily teach a guy to fish, but what are the things? So I'd like to, I know we're getting close to like a half hour, and but what are some of the gems that you'd like to give, seeds that maybe people who are hearing this in the audience could use to either grow now or maybe in the future, because it's really all about ourselves, being our most authentic selves, and what heals us.
I would say don't shame your fears, like listen to them and then step through them. That's what courage is, right? Like we have some fear or frustration and sometimes we let it stop us. Really look at that as like an invitation. I think that's the biggest one, and really be curious. It's such a gift in curiosity, and it's just, and engage with people, man. Like our fellow, we're all, listen, man, we're all bozos on this bus, right? And nobody's got it handled. No matter what it looks like, no one's got it handled. So just go engage with people. If there's someone you find interesting, reach out to them. If there's someone that you are curious about, reach out to them. That's all. Just engage. Life is short, man.
That's exactly it, because I know so many people who are like, how do you, with the guests, how do you find all these people? I'm like, I just reach out and say, hey, are you interested? Great. Like I looked into the Manhood Manifesto, and I was like, hey, that sounds pretty interesting. And that's one of those things that I'd love to share with people about. And reached out, and then, we spoke a bunch of times, and I love that. And I love the idea. And I don't know if it got lost. I want to make sure that the Right Foundation says they're in their 7th year of a 200-year process. So that's really one of those classic planting the seeds and knowing you're not going to be there to see. Well, maybe you will be, but chances are you will not be, or neither will I. To see that tree grow, but that if you help fertilize it, the people in your life that will be able to benefit from that.
Yeah, dude, that's what's so cool about it, And they've got this new commitment. They've got a graduate university, right? And they have an accredited MBA program. And this MBA program is really about changing the way business is done. And there's no MBA program like this in the world. And I know Bob Wright's speaking at some accreditation convention later in the year. And the reason that he's speaking is because the uniqueness of the school and the uniqueness of the approach and the uniqueness of what it is. And it's a fully accredited MBA, but it's just a completely different approach. And they're so committed to it. And the thing about having a 200-year purpose, oftentimes when we create purposes or when we create goals, we have an attachment to it. There's some kind of ego fulfillment there or something, right? There's something that keeps it from being clean. If you make it 200 years, dude, there can be no attachment, because, you're going to be during the journey and you don't know how it's going to end, but it's such an expression of, it really is about the journey and who you get to be on that journey. That is really the inspirational part of it,
Well, that's
why I'm.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, is that we're along the journey, right? Ram Dass, I use that quote often, but Ram Dass says, we walk each other home, and it's nice to be part of that journey. And today's journey, I really appreciate your time to be on the journey with us and listening to us and giving us a little piece of, what your Manhood Manifesto was, as well as the overall picture, because, the Right Foundation, it sounds like a very cool organization. This is doing stuff for people. It's being that servant leader in so many different ways.
But yeah, no, it's a cool organization. You should check it out. I'll send you some stuff when we're done.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about it, because I think that's really what it is. It's all about that journey that we're walking each other home, and I'm glad to have had this journey today with you. So we'll wrap up, because I've taken enough of your time, and we try to keep the episodes a half hour or so. But there's a lot more, and I'd love to keep hearing. We'll keep contacting you. How are the best ways to contact you for the audience?
Yeah, the best way to get a hold of me is you can email me, just Mike Shereck, my name, at gmail.com. You can find the book on Amazon. You can go to the Right Foundation.org and find them. And they're all over the internet. And I'm not hard to find. I'm pretty out there.
Okay, awesome. Definitely.
Meet me in Sturgis.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it's easy, to get a hold of me. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and for joining us this morning. And just want to wish everybody peace and love as always, because that brings us out to our center, and always ground yourself. But when you need to bring it back, keep that balance, know those boundaries, and swing away. And I hope you hit your sweet spot. Thank you. I'm really glad that you're enjoying our show. Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat is brought to you by Launchpad 516 Studios. Executive produced by David Chemetsky and George Andriopoulos. Music selections by James Grant, Zach Nelson, and James Gaither, and licensed through Storyblock. Sound effects and sponsorship music licensed through Epidemic Sound. Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat is hosted with Podbean. Subscribe to our show wherever podcasts are available. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and share with all of your friends. Follow us on Facebook at Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat. Follow me, Uncle Dave Chemetsky, on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Clubhouse. You can find all those links and more info at davidchemetsky.com. For show ideas, feedback, guest inquiries, or just a chat, reach out to me at peacelovebringabat@gmail.com. For sponsorship and media inquiries, reach out to peacelovebringabat@lp516.com. Make sure to follow all the great podcasts produced by Launchpad 516 Studios. Today's journey has come to a close, my friends. I hope the seeds of peace and love continue to grow for each one of you. Remember that peace and love surrounds you and will assist you to rise again. But don't forget to bring it back for what you believe in. Namaste.